to pray. There's no angels where I go, only pieces that are broken, scattered dreams across the floor. I'm home.
Alrighty, hello everybody, this is Kirsho here, and this is gonna have to be my last video for now, until I get home from work, because now they have me scheduled weird. So, let us start. When we last left off, Deku, he had just put on a pot of tea, and he would have finished making it and put it into 2 cups, as he would walk back over to the piloting bay. He would do so actually handing Momo a cup and asking exactly what they had found. She would be going over more and more, up until she eventually hits her roadblock, which is exactly how any of these people can be connected. There's various ways, there's various methods, and there's all tracing back to one simple reason. They're human. Taken by bad bloods and trained in their ways, the only reason they were not killed, quite simply being that we were blooded. We, quite simply, were already too late. So, we were seen as worthy. If not, we held some authority. Now then, with that being said, Deku would be watching as Momo would just get annoyed and eventually just, smash her hand down onto the consoles, trying to exactly put all these pieces together. Now, as that happens, Deku would just do one simple thing. He would stand up and ask Momo if she would like to go hunting. Momo would just say that it's kinda too late for that. The nearest reserve is about 2 days apart. Well then, as Deku would just crack his knuckles, saying then, they might as well do a bit of sparring then. Usually takes his mind off of things. Which she would somewhat agree with. Deku would say that he'll give her a handicap, as she actually does see the smirk on his face as he says he'll bring one hand behind his back to fight. Momo would just say that it seems like he's being a little arrogant. Not arrogant, I believe it's sarcastic. As Deku would do so, Momo would just charge at Deku as she actually does try aiming for his throat, face, parts of his shoulders, and the bends in his arms. As Deku's just dodging and actually just countering her, if not fighting her back, by quite simply blocking her left arm, then her right, and then the knee she would try and throw. And then he would just quite simply aim for her chest and just push her backwards, as he would explain to her that she's a bit too slow. This would piss Momo off, but she actually does know what he's talking about. She does train and she does fight, but without using any type of, part of her quirk to help herself enhance her body, she is completely immobile, basically, against Deku. Now, with that being said, she would immediately just rush at Deku as she would actually start using her quirk. She would create a bow staff, flying it, basically creating a bow staff in her hand as she would have tried getting in a tussle with Deku, creating it directly after their hands meet, pushing Deku's hand backwards into a wall as she would sock him in the face, somewhat overpowering him for a second. Now, this actually does catch Deku off guard, because he kind of expected her to create a shield or something else, but he didn't expect her to think on her feet. It's not something he's really known her for, which is whenever she would quite simply watch as Deku actually does grab the staff, forcing it back into her direction, making her actually back away. Now, after that happens, Deku just would rush at Momo as she would create a shield, smashing it across Deku's face, and Deku would just immediately tackle her to the ground, as he actually does bring his hand up and she would just have to give up. Now, She would just say that it's pretty good, but there's one problem with this. As she would immediately just sweep Deku's knee, making him somewhat move forward, and she would immediately just counter him by smashing him onto the mat, saying that he left himself open, as these two are breathing very heavily. Now, Momo somewhat feels something, and it doesn't feel quite right. She's usually confident and calm, but around Deku, she's been somewhat noticing that lately it's been a bit harder. It's, well, the best way to describe it is, she can concentrate, but she does usually think about this. If not, she admires Deku as a leader. Now, she would immediately just bring her head down to Deku as she tries talking to him, asking him if he can get out of this. Deku would just do one simple thing. He would say he can actually, but before he could even move, this is whenever someone would walk in. Let's say that this is actually May. She would just quite simply say, she can't believe that they triggered the alarm just for a simple sparring match. As these two basically just jump up to their feet. Well, I should have known. Anyways, let me explain something to you two. If you guys are going to be doing that here, well, at least know that I installed something on the ship. Doing what? Never mind. Now, this is whenever May would go over a new system she installed. Basically being that every single room, if they are not properly accessed, you can basically send down a silent signal to anyone on, basically to May. And May being the one who's a workaholic, she can immediately alert everyone by just pinging their own signals. With that being said, I do believe that would be a good idea, but I shouldn't do it yet. With that being said, this is where May would just quite simply ask Yaoyorozu that since she's here, she does need help on a few designs. As these two would be going over more of them and actually helping create prototypes. Now, Deku would somewhat be there to test them, if not being a guinea pig, since he's adaptable. With that, this is whenever Deku, after a couple hours of testing out some of these actual things, he would eventually leave, as May would just do one simple thing after he walks out of the room. You're really crushing on the cap, aren't you? What? Oh, come on, Yaoyorozu. It's obvious. In school, on the hunts, you look at him funny. Can't deny it, though. Can't really deny it, though. Besides, he is strong, he's a leader, and, well, I'm not gonna lie to you, he's really one of the only reasons I'm pretty sure we've survived this long. What do you mean? Well, don't you remember? Back on the ship, I believe, Geez, then it's a bit fuzzy for me. I believe he actually did pull a few of us out of the wreckage. Or he at least scanned the area. Not just that, he did save Mina. Even being able to risk his own life for that. So, can you honestly say with a clear conscience that you don't like him? Which is where Momo is a bit, well, she's actually caught off guard as her face is actually red. Now then, that being said, let us cut to... Yeah, I believe I can do that. Let us cut to the end of this year. So they are roughly a year before the start of the anime. This is going to be the summer. But what I mean by the summer is they just... Okay, so like I was trying to explain, there's probably going to be a word cut there, but if you guys did hear this explanation, just know this is post-editing. Now, just know that this is going to be basically the summer that Deku spends with everyone else. Then the start of the school year, which I believe is the start of the anime for Deku. Which is then whenever he goes over the 10 months, starting the new school year at UA. So, this is going to be that 3-month summer vacation. As they would all begin. Now, Deku, he is immediately ecstatic as they would all be packing their bags. Their parents still, after Deku eventually came home wearing a bear head, they kind of had to stop worrying about them. Since basically they can survive out there for far longer than they even thought possible. Now, with that being said, Deku, he's actually kind of itching to actually get back into the action. So they're all actually a bit antsy. But this is going to be where Todoroki, Toga, and Shinsho actually do come into play. Deku would just be asking Todoroki if he would like to actually come with them, and he would just bluntly say yes. As he actually does have the mark of the blooded, and so does Toga. Shinsho being the only one without it. Now, Shinsho would actually stay with the engineer, but he does at least practice with a bow staff. If not, he at least practices telepathy and telekinesis to train. And he actually has been able to somewhat speak English, as he's basically speaking it at a level to where he can only whisper. Now, he'll be staying in the forest training with the engineer for 3 months, as Deku and everyone else will go on the hunt. Now, with that being said, Deku, he is immediately excited. As soon as they get there, he immediately sets course for the nearest game reserve, 2 days away. As they all begin to travel, Deku would immediately go to the gym, as he would actually ask Todoroki if he would like to practice what he's learned. Todoroki, somewhat igniting both his hands in fire, just asking if he can use his quirk then. Well, I was hoping for more physical strength, but if we're going for quirks, then let's at least lock down the room. Now, this is whenever Deku, he would initiate the protocol. The entire room is made out of metal already, but this basically shuts down, if not closes down, the exterior window, looking out into space. So in case the hole does get breached, this wall there will actually stop it from sucking them into space. Now, Deku, him and Todoroki are facing off against one another. As Todoroki, he immediately begins to throw fireballs straight at Deku. Deku would just bring up his arms, actually just blocking them for a second before they actually do burn into his skin. Deku, he would just try to start adapting to what he just felt, as the skin on his arms do get rougher and somewhat a bit spikier. Now, his skin, the only reason why it's getting spikier is so that I can actually somewhat hold away the fire, if not try and funnel it upwards, basically taking the air out of the flame. Now then, as soon as that happens, Deku, people are watching as his skin gets rougher and rougher and rougher, as he also does get spikier, actually adapting and eventually coming toward Todoroki. As Todoroki would just blast an entire wave of fire, as Deku would just smash him down into the ground, saying that he's out. Now, if this were an actual fight, you would be dead by now. So, you need to improve on physical combat. As Todoroki would just say, he forgot one thing, as he would immediately just tap on the ground, covering with ice with both of his hands. Deku just being frozen from the waist up. As Todoroki just gets back up, punching Deku in the face, and knocking him over. You said if this were a fight, you would have finished me off by now, but you did not. So, that means we're still going, as these two would continue doing so. eventually wearing each other down. Bakugo, he is watching this, and he actually is really interested at what this guy can do. But he's more interested in what Toga's been explaining before. The bad bloods, the way their blood reacts to humans, helping increase their power. So that might actually be something he can look into. If not, it can at least help him catch up to Deku, but even then, using a bad blood to do this would not already be a good idea. So, he would just put that thought to the back of his mind, as they would all finally arrive at the reserve. They would come down to the planet, as they all began to try and hunt, splitting off into teams. Mei actually setting Deku and Momo up together, as these two would go out to hunt. Deku and her are just, running through the forest and actually jumping around as they are swinging through. This is whenever Deku, he would find a prey as he actually just scan it. And he actually does come down to kill it, and he would do so, as he's looking around for more. He did take down what he can essentially be their dinner. But even then, he does need to collect more. This is whenever they would continue doing so. And eventually Deku would come across one thing. He would come across an old ship that is, it's just basically desolate. If not, it's completely powerless and taken down. Deku would see this as he would hear something in the distance. He hears an animal screaming as he hears one familiar sound. Bones breaking. As he puts it together. One thing that's going on in this reserve is there are xenomorphs here, and they aren't prepared to take on xenomorphs. With their standardized weaponry, they can hold them off, but if they get overwhelmed by too many, then they're done for. So Deku would just immediately radio to everyone to head back to the ship. They have xenomorphs on the planet. Now, this is whenever Deku, he would immediately hear Momo scream, as he would turn around saying that Momo is actually stabbing into a xenomorph, as there is acid running down her staff, actually catching her hand, as she would have just created something over it to get the acid away from her skin. Deku would have seen this as he would have just immediately sprayed it down with something on his belt. Now, I want to say that the Yaoja, they would have heard of the effects of vinegar, if not have some chemical similar to it, to nullify acid burns. So it at least is standardized equipment. And if it sounds like I'm pulling it out of my ass, I feel like that would be very useful to the Yaoja, because it could protect their equipment. Seriously, why did they not use vinegar? Or the acid's probably just too powerful, but for the sake of this, let's say that this is just, it works. Now, Deku would do that as he would immediately just tell Mo to start running their direction. They would begin to go as Deku can hear one thing. He hears some of the actual prey behind them, if not some actual xenomorph, as they begin to run. They are running through the forest as they are just getting overwhelmed. He can hear the sea of them behind them, but this is when Deku does one thing. He would come to the ship and find that the ship is actually holding them off. If not, they're just sitting on the ship blasting away at xenomorphs. As Deku, he would just be running and Momo is right behind him. These two would actually go and jump for the ship. As they do so, the ship would immediately begin to blast off as they try and reach down and grab them, but there is a xenomorph holding onto Deku's leg, as Deku is just kicking at it trying to get its hand off. As eventually Deku would let go. Momo actually would extend out her arm, grabbing onto Deku as she's just holding him up. Mei's trying to get a clear shot on the xenomorph, but she can't even do so, as these two would both let go. falling down to the reserve below. Deku slicing at the Xenomorph's head, taking it off, if not taking a chunk out of it, as they would both land in the forest. Now, this is whenever Deku, he would immediately run over to Momo, and he would find her. She is actually a bit injured, as that fall did break her leg. But Deku would do one thing. He would tell her to put their camo on, as they would do so. These two just sitting in the trees, as Deku actually does cover Momo, hiding his own body heat. Now, Momo's a bit confused, as the Xenomorph would just be right behind Deku. She's staring directly at it, as this Xenomorph is looking around and actually trying to sniff around. Finding no prey, it would just jump off the branch. And that is where I'm going to leave things off of, guys. Sorry to do the cliffhanger ending, but they are now stuck on the reserve. They're not going to be stuck for very long, but it's going to be somewhat of a minute. Now then, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video, and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.